Hello everyone, it's Dawn here from Dawn's Inspirations. Just wanted to share with you another file folder mini album. This one I'm going to call File Folder Style 4. So this is the fourth in the series of the file folders mini albums I've been making with you. I'm just using an ordinary office file folder. This one's from Staples. This is a foolscap size one. So the biggest measurement on this with the biggest tab is 9.5 inches, and this is measuring 13.5 inches. But it doesn't matter if you've got the A4 size, because you can just adapt your measurements to the A4 size and still make the album. It'll be a little bit smaller. These haven't got the separate tab on, these just go straight the way across. If you've got the ones with the tab on, it does not matter at all, you can still make this album. Okay, so I'm using the normal buff ones for this, and then I've got an extra sheet of 12x12 craft cardstock to help to make some more photo mats because I won't have enough. And then today I'm just using some 8x8 papers. This is a Dovecraft Back to Basics Christmas collection, but what I've done is I've picked some papers out of here that aren't really very Christmassy. You can use them for every day as well, so I'm trying to go sort of more everyday route than a Christmas album on this one. Okay, so let's get started then. So we'll start off with the file folder, and with the long side we're going to measure down. We're going to open up your file folder, and with the long side here to your left, I want you to measure 10 inches, and then we're going to cut it. Okay, now it won't fit in on my paper trimmer unfortunately at 10 inches, so it's going to have to be by hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it on the score pal and then cut it with my scissors. So if you've got a trimmer that will cut 10 inches, that's all well and good, but unfortunately mine does 13.5 inches, unfortunately mine doesn't. So I'm just going to go down here at the 10-inch mark, which on these file folders is actually, you got all these little lines, it's the second one along, so actually it works out quite a nice guide for me. I don't need to flip it over at this stage because I'm not scoring this. So I'm now going to cut this. So you'll have a piece of cardstock that's measuring 13.5 inches by 10 inches. So if you haven't got a file folder, you could make this with some normal cardstock. If you've got 12x12, you probably will have to join a piece together. Now don't throw this away because we're going to use this for the photo mats. Okay, and then leaving it in your score pal with this little bend that's here, I want you to go along and we're going to score 8 inches. So I'm going to score this down. This is the natural fold in the file folder, but do not worry because we're going to fold that up and then it won't be a problem. Now, as a lot of you know, when I'm scoring, I like to flip it over and do the same on the other side. This just helps your paper from not cracking. So that's that one. Okay, and then what we're going to do is along the long side of your bit of file folder you've got, this is the 13.5 inch side, I want you to pop the left hand side into your score pal or to the edge of where you want to do, and we're now going to score at 6.5 and 7 inches, and this is going to make a natural spine to the mini album that we're making. So 6.5 and 7 inches. Now as we're folding this as a spine, I want to flip this over and score on the other side as well, just so my paper doesn't crack. Now you can see I've got writing on my file folder. Do not worry about that at all because we will be covering that with paper. But the beauty of these little mini albums, if you're not an avid scrapbooker, that you can make little mini albums out of everyday products really. So I'm going to bring my mat back up now, and we're just going to burnish these score lines. So I'm bringing this one up first, and just with your bone folder, just make sure you've got a nice firm burnish. Okay, all the way along. When you burnish these lines, this just helps when the album comes together for it to sit nicely. Okay, so that's that one. We now need to fold in. But I'm keeping this up here because this is going to be the flap to the part of our mini album. So I'm going to fold now at this line, and because we've scored on both sides, it comes together okay. So just burnish along. Now where you have got obviously 4 pieces of card, you do really need to give it a really good burnish, but it's worth taking the time to do that. Okay, and then we're going to do the same with the other line. Make sure it's lined up so it's all square, and then the same again. So good burnish all the way down. So now you should have this when you open up. So you've got the centre line there that's going to be the natural spine that we've made, and then you've got your flaps here too. Now we're not going to stick anything down at this stage because we're going to add the paper as we stick down. But the next thing we need to do is the spare piece of paper that we had, we need to make 2 more pockets for this album. So we're going to trim these. So we're going to use this paper, and then we need to cut 2 strips from this paper, measuring 13.5, which is the width across, by 2.5 down. And we need to do 2 of those. Okay, there again, it won't fit in my trimmer. I will just confirm it won't fit in. No, it won't fit in my trimmer, so I'm going to have to cut by hand. So I'm going to take it to the side, and I'm going to do 2 at 2.5 inches. So on the shorter side, score down 2.5 inches. So that would be 2.5 and 5. Came off there, came out the runner. I'm going to flip it over and do the same again. And then I need to cut those 2 strips out. Now if your paper trimmer, as I say, is longer, you can go ahead and use a paper trimmer. Mine is not, so I'm having to do this freestyle. Okay, so now you have your 2 strips, and we're going to do exactly the same with these. On the long side, you're going to score these now at 6.5 and 7 inches. So go in and score these at 6.5 and 7 inches. And then flip it over and do the same again. That's one. I'm going to do the second one now. So that's 6.5 and 7 inches. Okay. Right. And we're now going to burnish these folds, because these are going to make the extra pockets that are going to fit in our album. That's one. Let's do the other one. Don't worry about the writing, as I say, because this is going to be covered with paper, or it will be at the back of the book in a pocket, so you won't actually see it. Okay, so that's those 2 done. And what's going to happen is, if I bring in the album we've got, these then are going to fit in here to make extra pockets. But we're not going to stick anything down now. Now at this stage, if you want to go off, and I've just used some Distress Stain in the Vintage Photo, just with my pad, and if you want to go ahead at this stage and just ink round all the edges of your file folder, all the creases that go into the corners, you do all that on both sides, so on that side and on that side. So that's the next stage that you need to now go ahead and do. So if you wanted to pause the video now while you go ahead and do that, because I've got mine all ready to go just to save time. So if you want to go ahead and ink your edges, if you'd like to pause the video now. Right, the next stage is I'm going to put this one aside because I've got one here already with all my edges that are inked, as you can see. Got them all inked up ready to go, and I've got the first part down here of my my folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the cover, and we're going to stick some pattern paper here on the cover. I've cut some nice pink red dotty here. It's a bit of a vintage red dotty, and I've cut the paper just to the inside, so you've got a little bit of gap around the edge to see the craft paper. And I've also cut a strip for the spine. But before we stick this down, we're going to put a ribbon binding to put the book together. But I'll give you the measurements of these. So the mats I've cut here, you'll need 2 that are measuring just under 6.5. I don't know if you can quite see that on there. It's just under 6.5, and it's just 7 3/4 inches. So by putting it on here, you've got a little bit of a gap all the way around. So just bear that in mind. I mean, you can work that measurement out for yourself. And then I've done the strip again, which is very thin. This isn't even 1/2 inch, it's between 1/2 and 1/4 inch. It's very thin strip, same length again, and this is just going to go on the inside here. Again with these, I've inked around all the edges using my distress stain just to take the edges off the paper. So I've already done that, I've prepped that ahead of time. So we'll go ahead now and we'll start gluing all these bits down. I'm going to use some ribbon for the binding for this. I've picked some ribbon that matches. So I think we'll have a couple of strips about that long. I'm just guesstimating here. If you wanted the measurements for these, I've just guesstimated, but the ribbon I'm using today, that's 12 inches. So 2 pieces at 12 inches. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape. Now, there again I'm eyeballing. So this is measuring 8 inches. So I want this roughly halfway at 4. Choice is yours again. You don't have to have it at that measurement. It's like my glue guns are making a bit of a mess everywhere. Let me just wipe that up. So I'm just putting a piece of double-sided tape. I'm not using red or anything special, just normal double-sided tape. Okay, for that. So I'm going to put a piece on that side, and then I need to put a piece on this other side so it matches up. So I'm just going to run my ruler so it is more or less level. So strip again, pop that down there. Okay, and then I'm going to take this off, and we can then stick the ribbon down before we stick our paper down. I find double-sided is better for sticking your ribbons because you don't want to use, that's what I'm going to get my craft knife out to get the backs off the ribbons here, off the double-sided tape. They're not coming off very easily today under the lights. Right, so they're both off, so I can stick my ribbon down. So I've cut one end at an angle and the other end I've got flat, so it's the flat end I'm going to use just to stick that down on there. Okay. Stick that down on there, and then we can go ahead and start sticking our cover on. And for sticking the cover, I'm going to use my old favourite, the Calal all-purpose glue. I know if you ladies and gentlemen are in the States and Canada at the moment, it's not readily available. I've been in touch with the UK supplier, and fingers crossed by February 2014 you'll be able to get it out there. They're going to get the suppliers in Canada and the States to stock it. So it's a big trade show coming up in the new year, and that's when you'll be able to get it. So just leaving that glue on there. going to put a little strip down here. It's a great glue, sticks almost anything. I've even stuck the kitchen worktop with it, so it's that good. So I'm going to stick my spine piece on. Gives you a little bit of wiggle room using a wet glue. You could use a tape runner, you could use your double-sided tape. It's your personal preference. I just find with sticking things like this, by having a wet glue, it just gives me that little bit of wiggle room when sticking things down. So just go ahead now. So as you say, so you've got that little bit of movement that you can line it up exactly where you want it. So I'm just lining that up now. Just take your time to line it up. That's enough. And then just pressing it all down with my fist just to make sure the glue disperses and we get a good adhesion as well. So, as I said, I've already inked the edges. I'm just going to burnish over where we got the ribbon. That's all nicely stuck. So that's the first one. Go ahead and put the second one down. So same thing again. Let's stick that down. So even though this is Christmas paper I'm using, it actually works very well as an everyday album. So it's not ultra Christmassy, it's just some paper I had left that I could use up. So that's why I'm using it today. So just go ahead again with the ribbon, make sure that's stuck down. Okay, so that's the front and back cover of our book with the tie already on there. Okay, so now we're going to flip over and we're going to start now assembling the book, the mini folder itself. Now, what I've done is I've put some tape. Now this is going to be the centre spine, so I've put some double-sided tape on the centrepiece and I put some thin tape on each of the ends. Okay, so that's the first one. I'm not going to stick this down yet, so I'm just showing you. And then I've put a little pattern paper mat on here. There again, you can measure it yourself just so it comes in shy of where you're putting it. I wouldn't put it on the spine itself, I'm going to leave that plain. But if you wanted to know my measurements, this one is measuring, that's between 6 1/4 and 6 1/2, and then that's 1 1/4 deep, that one. Okay, and then we've got the other two as well, that we strips that we cut out. If you remember, we've got the two strips here that we already cut out. Okay, same thing again. What I've done is I've got the tape, this time I've got the tape on the centre and down each side, but I've also got it along the bottom so it makes a pocket. Okay, so I've done that the same on both of these. Okay, so these are the ones that measured 2 1/2, and then the pattern paper for these, again it will be the same measurement along, so that's over 6 1/4, so it's between 6 1/4 and 6 1/2, and then that's measuring just over 2 1/4. So as I say, if you measure it that you've just got a little bit of a gap round the edge, so you can make that measurement yourself. If you want to cover it all, you can do it. It's personal choice, your choice. Okay, so we've got our 3 pockets. Okay, so before we start sticking down, I've also cut another 2 strips that we're going to stick on the top here, so we haven't got the buff colour showing. Now these are measuring, this should be the same again, this is just over 6 1/4, between 6 1/4 and 6 1/2, and these are measuring not quite 2 1/2 down, so between 2 1/4 and 2 1/2 inches. So you could do it 2 1/2 inches, but what I've done basically is when we glue it down, you're going to have a gap all around the edge. I've gone ahead again and inked all around the edges of my papers before I stuck them, so we're going to stick these 2 down. So we get some wet glue on here. I mean, the colours in this, you could use this for a masculine or a feminine album really. They go either way, which is quite nice. So that's the glue down there. Then we'll stick these down. So pop that in there. have it where you want it, so you've got a gap round the edge. Got a bit of glue on there. If we rub this glue while it's wet, it does come off, which is great and doesn't leave any marks. Just stick that all down. We can do the same with this side. Right, okay, so I'm happy with those. So now we can go ahead and stick our pockets. Now I think I'm going to stick the plainer colour one that I've done next. So these, I'm just going to turn the album to the side to do this next job. Okay, what I've done here is I'm going to move this one out of the way for a minute because we don't need that one. And then I'm going to just measure down so I can give you a measurement of where you need to stick. Okay, now bearing in mind we're going to have one there if I show you what the idea is, and then one just tucked under there. It gives you a pocket there, a pocket there and a pocket there to put photo mats. Okay, so the first photo mat I'm going to stick down. I've made a mark here on mine already at 4 3/4. So I've made a little pencil line at 4 3/4. I'm going to do the same on this top side here. So 4 3/4 inches. So just make a little mark. Okay. And you could also make a little mark on the spine as well, just so you know your square. Okay, so that's 4 3/4. And then we can start sticking this down. Now what I would personally do is stick the spine first. So take the paper off this spine. That's sticking to me. Got any little ends, tuck them in at this stage. I'm then going to partly pull at that. This is a little top tip here. If you partly pull that back, I'll show you what we do. It makes it easier when we're sticking the rest down. Okay, so we're going to take that back down there. So this is going to go on the 4 3/4 mark. So if you just line it up, just take your time so it lines up with your album. I'm not quite happy that's square. That's why I'm not using a red line tape here. I'm just using a normal double-sided tape. I'm happy with that. So we can stick that down there. Okay, and then at this stage I'm just going to move this up here and I'm going to take this backing off this one. So I'm going to take off this back piece here. But before I stick it down, I've got this little tab here that we had. If you press your hand there, if you pull it, that means it stays flat the whole time. That brings that into play. And then you just pop this bit down and that's that done. And then if you just get your bone folder and make sure that's nicely stuck down. Okay, we're going to do the same the other side. I'm just going to turn this round again towards me. So I've got my little tab that's gone stuck back down again. So I'm just going to take this piece off here. Tuck the ends in if you've got any. So I'm going to just press it down and pulling this. Oh, that's come off away. That's not so good. So I'm just going to go in now and pull the rest of that off. Right, let's try again. So I'm going to pull it towards me. Go ahead and burnish all that. Okay, so that's your first pocket done. Okay, and I'm going to go and do the same again with the other one. So if you get the other pocket ready, I'll just move all these bits out of the way. And then we're going to do the same. This time we're going to do a measurement down of 6 3/4. So I'm going 6 3/4. I've already made one measurement here. I'm going to do another one in the middle of the spine at 6 3/4, and another one on this end as well at 6 3/4. Okay, so we do the same thing again. Get our centrepiece and take the backing off the tape. That's quite the nice idea with this book. If you get everything ready and prepped, the assembly of the little mini album comes together quite quickly, which is very satisfying. Now remember, when you're sticking this, that the bottom piece, your bottom sticky bit, needs to be towards the bottom. So I'm flipping mine round and I'm going to line it up at 6 3/4. The little pencil mark I made. Doesn't matter about the pencil mark, because once the album comes together, you've stuck over the top of it, so nobody sees the pencil mark. Okay. Right, and we're going to go ahead again what we did here before. We're going to make the little tab. Come to the side, and I'm going to take this end off. So we're going to then stick it down, pulling it along, and then we're going to burnish that off, and then I'm going to flip it around and do the other side. So take this one off, tuck any ends in that you've got, and have to gradually lay that down. The beauty of doing it like this, you can just take your time with it. So, you know, for a lot of new crafters out there, it's perfect. Right, again, we'll burnish those edges, etc. Right, that's that all done out the way, and now we're going to go ahead now and do the last one. So we're going to take off our backings. Tuck any, if you've gone over to the edge like I have, just tuck those in, it does not matter at all. Okay. That one as well. I'm just going to turn this again while we do it flat. So I'm putting the spine piece in first, sticking that right the way down, and this time we're just sticking these edges. So with your bone folder, just make sure they're nicely stuck. Okay, so that gives you 3 pockets to your mini album. Okay, so that all now starts to come together and look like a nice little book. Okay, so now we're going to make the photo pockets. This is where your sheet of craft 12 by 12 comes in, and what you need to do is you need to cut 6 6 by 4 pockets, which easily come out of here. I've cut and prepared mine already, because you can get 2 all the way along. So that's your 5, and this is the last one I'm going to mat and layer with you, so that's your 6. And all I've done with these is I've used my corner rounder just to round off the corners. Personal preference, if you haven't got one, you don't have to, not a problem. So that's your sheet of 12 by 12 craft. So I go ahead now and mat and layer this last one, as I hadn't done it. Just slide this up here. I've cut paper to go on both sides of these, so there again it just comes slightly in on the paper itself. I've inked round all the edges again using my distress ink, so I've gone round all the edges, and also the edges on the craft card itself. So we'll get those stuck down. So use the wet glue again for this. Wet glue is great because even on very thin paper it doesn't bobble up or warp, which is marvellous, so I can't recommend it enough. So pick this first one up, so we get that stuck down. See what I'm doing, so I'm just going to wiggle that into where I want it, and then just press that all down. Flip that over, and we'll do the same on the other side. I'm not going to do any decorative stitching or anything on those because I like these as they are. So we can now pop these in. So these are 6x4 photo mats. So you can get pictures on each side, just cut down from normal 6x4 prints. So even if you wanted to give it away as a gift, it makes you know, a perfect gift because people can add their own photographs to it. So we'll go ahead and add these into here. Okay, you could do these slightly differently on this side. So there, as I say, you can just use scraps of paper. I've used 8x8 pad for this one. So that's the basics of your mini album. So lots of opportunity to add photographs. I mean, I've put one photo mat in each pocket, but really it would take two quite easily. So if you wanted to do two, and I think even then you've still got enough room on the spine, if you can see that way up, you've still got enough room on the spine, it would take that probably. So just experiment if you've got more photos you want to add, so feel free to do it, it's your album. So that's the main album itself. I'm just going to go ahead now and do a little bit of decoration on the front. So I'm just going to tie this off into a nice little bow, so that just helps to keep it closed. So that's our little closure. I've got a little craft tag here that I've inked the edges again with my distress stain, and then I've just used the ultra fine Sharpie and I've just done a little stitching round. I haven't written anything on here yet, so until I've filled the album with what I want to put in it, I've kept that blank because that's what I'm going to use. And I just sort of share with you a little embellishment that you could put on here. I've got a button, let me just move that to the top out of the way. I've got a button here, and I've got, this is covered wire. You can probably get this from florists or craft shops, so it's covered wire. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to thread this in and out. Let me go that way first. I'm going to cut a piece off, I think. In fact, I'm going to go the other way, so I'm going to start from the back. I think I'll have to do it because this has got 4 holes. It's better from the back, so I'm going from the back first. So I'm just threading this through. If you haven't got wire, you can use twine, it's perfectly alright. Okay, so and then I'm going to go that way. And that way. It's a little bit fiddly, but these little embellishments, you know, they do finish something off. And because I'm not quite sure what pictures I'm going to put in this album yet or who I'm giving it away to, I can add it later. But as I say, it's quite nice to use for a masculine or a feminine album, so I can use that for either. Okay, so that's my button. Just want to pull that through a bit more. Just need to pull that tab through a bit more. That's the trouble with it being wire. That's it. Then put that one down. There we go. So that's my button, and I've got the wire on the back. And then what I've got is I've got some. I had another piece of ribbon, and I've lost that as well. So we've got some ribbon here. So I'm just going to layer these, just like that, as a little sort of star effect. Okay, and then I'm going to get my ribbon. I'm just going to take it round the back. A little bit fiddly, this is where you need 3 hands. So I'm trying to hold that still, and then I'm going to bring my 2 pieces of wire up. As I say, you can do this with normal twine, but this is where the wire comes into its own. So I'm just going to pull it round. So that then brings that nice and tight. It just makes a little bit of a nice embellishment to put on the album. Okay, so I'm happy with that now. So what I thought we could do is I could put that in the corner up here with the tag then coming down. Okay, so I can then write on my tag what I want, like the title of the album, etc. So I'm going to go ahead now and tie this off so it can be stuck down. I've got my hot glue gun to stick this down. Okay, now you could twizzle these little bits. I'm just wondering if I've got my the tool I need for this. No, I haven't. So let me see if I get my pokey tool and I can show you how to make a little twizzle on these. So another thing you can do is with a barbecue skewer or a pokey tool, if you hold the end and just twine it round. So rather than cut these off, you can make them into little twirly embellishments. This isn't not quite wide enough. A barbecue skewer works better for this, but you get the idea that you've got a little twirl on there. Okay, so I'm going to get my hot glue gun now and stick that down. I'd recommend using a hot glue gun for this rather than silicone glue, purely because I've tried it with the silicone glue and I find the hot glue gun works quicker and it stays put. So I'm just going to stick that on there. It's a little bit of an embellishment. And then my tag, I can then, when that is dry, I can tie my tag round there. Or I can do it now to show you. And then stick the other side of that with some foam sticky pads so it sticks up a little bit. That's what I've got in here. Put some foam sticky pads here. So just stick a few of these on the back. As I say, I haven't written on here what the title is or anything because I'm not sure what I'm going to use the book for, but I can add that at a later date, that's not a problem. So I'm just going to put 4 on here. And by raising it up, it just gives a bit more interest to the front of your album. So take the back off those. Oh, last one does not want to come off. Then what I'll probably do is to loop that round the button. I mean, I've only done a loose knot here, so I can loop that round that button to give a bit more interest, and then I can have that hanging down there. So that's my take on a mini file folder album, style number 4. This is in the series, so as you can see, got a nice little embellishment on the front there. I've kept it nice and plain so it will work for a man as well as a woman, or masculine as well as feminine. And then when you open up your album, you've got your 6 photo mats ready to add photographs. Now another thing you can also do is you've got your 6 photo mats. You could also add photographs behind here or put some journaling. Choice is entirely yours. So as I say, you can add more photo mats, you can add journaling, you can add mats behind. So there's plenty of room for photos in this little mini album. So this is my mini file folder style number 4 album. And I'll give you a total measurement of the whole album if you wish as well. I'll just tie the bow here. So the total measurement of this album measures 6.5 inches by 8 inches. So it's a nice substantial mini album. Looks very nice, pleasing to the eye. Okay, so I'm Dawn from Dawn's Inspirations. Please have a go at making mini file folder album style number 4. And I'd love to see what you get up to. If you make one, please post me some pictures on my Facebook page because I'd love to see what you get up to and how you interpret making my albums. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Dawn from Dawn's Inspirations. Bye bye for now.